After the CTET exam, many of my students come and tell me, ma'am, this was a known question, पर ऐसे पूछ लिया कि हम थोड़े confused हो गए. Now imagine this. You have prepared for 2-3 months. You have even done the PYPs. Then what happened that you were not able to answer even known questions? As a teacher, I feel one of the best things that you should be able to understand is how are questions asked. To put it more clearly, if a topic is given, then in how many ways can a question be asked from the same topic? In this video, I'll be breaking down the 4 different types of questions that CBSE asks and 3 things that you can do while you're preparing for the CTET. So let's dig in. So the first type of questions are direct questions. These are the simplest of all questions which we know. There is a question with 4 options and a single correct answer. So out of the 4 options, only one of those options will be correct. Let me give you an example. I'm taking these examples from the CDP section wherever possible because that's a topic which all of you prepare for, whether you're preparing for paper 1 or paper 2. And in case you are still to appear for the CTET, then this will be a kind of a revision for you. Now, even in direct questions, there are 3 types. It could be a simple direct question where you're asked to find what is something. For example, according to Kohlberg's theory, at what stage are children self-centered and see their own benefit in doing something? Then they've given 4 options. First stage in the second level, second stage in the first level, third stage, all that. And the correct answer, we know that this is the tit for tat stage. So the answer is second stage in the first level. So this is one kind of a direct question where they directly ask you what is something. So that was one type of direct question in which they ask you directly what is something. Now the second type is where they ask you what something is not. Let's see that. So which of the following questions about inclusive education is not correct? So basically out here, 3 of the options will be correct and 1 will be incorrect, and that one which is incorrect becomes the correct answer. So students do get a little confused. This is a little higher order of direct questions. So let's continue with the question. So the 4 options are inclusive teaching means teaching in ways that do not exclude. So this is correct, hence not the option we are looking for. Inclusive teaching means adopting pedagogies that support the needs of all learners. So again, this is correct, hence not what we are looking for. An inclusive classroom accommodates differences in the language styles and promotes collaborations. Again, this is correct, so not what we are looking for. And an inclusive classroom centers around fixed curricula and standard assessments. So this is exactly what we're looking for because this is not correct. Hence, that becomes the correct answer for us. Now, the third type of direct questions which are asked is where you have fill in the blanks. You can have 1 fill in the blanks with every answer option having 1 word. You can have 2 fill in the blanks in the same sentence. So the answer options will have 2 options and you have to get it correct. So it can go on and on. So generally, CTET has looked at only 1 fill in the blanks or 2 fill in the blanks at the most. So an example of this would be Lev Vygotsky proposes that dash is important for self-regulation. And the 4 options given, which will fill in this blank, is disequilibrium, inner speech, adaptation, and organization. So we know that Vygotsky proposes that inner speech is important for self-regulation. So the first kind of questions were direct questions. Now the next kind of questions are the assertion and reason question. In these questions, there are 2 statements. One is an assertion, that means it says that it is true, and the other is a possible reason. So the answers are like this. There are generally 4 answers, which says both A and R are true and R is the correct explanation for A. Both A and R are true, but R is not the correct explanation for A. A is true, but R is false, or A is false, but R is true. Now, if you look at question papers, these have generally been the 4 options, but I would highly recommend that before you attempt the answer, just look at the options given, because For all you know, they could just add that both A and R are true, both A and R are false. So just be careful, because what happens when you have options like this is, if A is false, if the assertion itself is false, then there is only one correct answer, because in the other three statements, A has to be true. R may explain it, may not explain it. But if A is false, then option number 4, generally A is false and R is true, is the correct answer. So still, before you attempt these questions, as I'm saying for future reference, just check what are the options they have given. But here we start with figuring out whether the assertion given, when you assert something, you say that this is what is true, this is what is real, this is what happened. So you need to check whether the assertion is true. Then you need to check whether the reason is true and whether this reason explains A or not. So let's look at a few questions. So in the first question, the assertion says school curriculum should give reasonable space and value to the learner's cultural knowledge. Now we know that this is true because the school curriculum should give value and space to the learner's cultural knowledge, their background. The reason they are saying is supporting students uphold their cultural identities facilitates learning. Now, this is also true. We know that if you can uphold where they come from, their background, their language, then it will facilitate how they learn. So, in this case, both A and R are true, and R is the correct explanation for A. Let's look at another question. Assertion: learning comes from real life problems and concrete examples give children multiple pathways for learning and retrieving information. Now, this is true because when we learn, we need real life problems that they have faced. Concrete examples will help them, and they will be able to get multiple pathways for learning and retrieving. So, very true, the assertion is. The reason they have given is development is relatively orderly and sequential. We know that this is true. Yes, we do know that from the principles of development, that development is relatively orderly and sequential. But does R explain A? No, it doesn't, because they are two different things, learning from real life and development. Development and learning, in this question, they are not related. So the answer would be A and R are true, but R is not the correct explanation or reason for A. So we've done two kinds of questions, direct questions and the assertion and reason questions, which I call the AR questions. Now the third kind of questions, and I'm very happy that the 21st Jan 2024 CTET paper has actually differentiated the statements, and these are the statement questions, the AB questions as I asked them. Now prior to 2024, what CTET did was they would put the AB questions and try to give it a assertion and reason. That is, they would write assertion, reason, and they made no sense. But this time they've understood that these are to be called statement questions or AB questions, and this is how it goes. So in the AB questions or the statement questions, two statements are given. Both can either be true or false. Okay, so statement A can be true. They need not be related at all. So statement A can be true, statement B can be true, both can be false. So the options are both A and B are true, both A and B are false, A is true, B is false, A is false, B is true. So anyway, those are the only four possible options that you could have. And what this does is, so since these two statements don't need to be related to each other, you just have to know whether each of these statements is true. So this makes the question a little bit harder. So let's see what the kind of questions which they gave. So the two statements, this is taken from social studies because that's where this has been used maximum. So the question was, in 1817, James Mill published a history of British India in 3 volumes. This is true. In this, he divided history into 3 periods, ancient, medieval, and modern. This is false because he divided it into Hindu, Muslims, and Christians based on the rulers. So here we know that A is true, but B is false. Another AB question went like this. In 1770, a terrible famine killed 10 million people in Bengal. This is true. About 1/3 of the population of Bengal was wiped out. Like, this is presumed of Bengal. It was wiped out. So both the statements are true. So both A and B are true. And the final kind of questions, the fourth kind of questions, are questions with internal choices. Now, this takes the difficulty to a totally different level. Let's see how they are. So, there are options within the questions, and the answers will be a combination of those options. So, not only do you have to understand the question, you have to know each and every option, and you have to be able to decipher these options given within the question. Let's see an example. India and Bangladesh are leading producers of jute. Choose the correct statement that supports the growth of jute. Again, this has come from the social studies because that's the place where these kind of questions have been asked. And anyway, there are 60 questions. Now, the internal choices, these are not the options, these are internal choices, is it grows well in alluvial soil, which is true about jute. It requires high temperature. This is also true about jute. It requires low temperature and low rainfall. So this is not true, not required. And it requires heavy rainfall and humidity. So from the four options given to us internally, A, B, and D would be the correct. And that's how the answers are given. So A, B, C are correct, A, B, D are correct. So here the second one, A, B, D are correct, would become the correct answer. So this is how they take the question to another level. Now, another question based on these internal choices. Let's see that. This was taken from English as language 1. This is from paper 2. So even if you don't have English as your paper, basically these questions are based on the comprehension passage. So this is another way of how questions have been asked. The writer is traumatized by the memory of her childhood. The daughter's secret brings back nostalgic memories. The writer wants her child to be connected to the sweet pleasures of life. So, in this, before I show you the answer will not mean anything much out here, but I would like to show you something about the internal choices that they have asked. If you look at the second one, they have made B and C are incorrect, A is correct. Now, this is not the correct answer. The correct answer is the fourth one. B and C are correct, A is incorrect, which I've given out here. But here is another way. A lot of students, I'm sure, would have marked the second option because they see B and C together and they just presume that since in the other options they are marked correct, that would be the correct order. So that is something that you have to keep in mind. So now that you know how CBSE or CTET questions are asked, even from the topics that you know, how should you prepare and what should you do so that if you have prepared a topic once, if you say that yes, I've done this, then there should be no mistake. I have 3 tips for you. The first and most important is focus on the concept. There are very few. If I divide it into how many recall questions and how many concept based questions have been asked, I've done a detailed analysis of the paper and I'll put the link up here somewhere or in the description. It's been asked on the concept. The concept has to be has to be totally understood by you, especially in CDP and in your pedagogy of languages. You must understand and know the concept because many of the questions are not recall based. So, conceptual understanding of any topic that you do is very important. Next, whenever you take up a most repeated topic, CTET tends to repeat its topic because it has a fixed syllabus. Please remember all the details of that repeated topics. Now you'll ask me, what do you mean by all the details? So I'm going to give you an example from EVS. This is a subject from paper 1 and anybody who has studied for paper 1 will know this. There's a chapter on elephants about Nandu the elephant. Now from that chapter, only 5 things have to be remembered. That's it, 5. 1. Elephants eat around 100 kgs of trees and twigs and whatever. 2. They sleep only 4-5 hours a day. 3. They love to be in the water and the mud because they have to keep themselves cool. 4. A baby elephant after 3 months after birth weighs around 200 kgs. And 5. Most of the herd is made up of female elephants. The oldest female is the leader of the group, and at the age of 14 years, the male elephant leaves the group. That's all that you need to remember. Any question asked on that topic can be answered on this. But what happens is they'll change the number of hours the elephant sleeps, or they'll change the 200 100 kg options, and students are confused. So whenever you take up any detail, any topic that I'll say only I'll do this much, do it thoroughly. Remember everything that has to be learnt about it. And finally, read the question paper well. This is very, very important. That is why I showed you that incorrect option which they had put in that internal choice, where when the correct answer was B, C are correct and A is incorrect. One of the options was B and C was incorrect and A is correct. And I'm sure many students have gone and marked that option and not this. So they do it many times. There's really one word missing here, and that is how you have to take care. So I hope you found this video useful and this will help you in your CTET preparations. If it was helpful, to put in a like, you can put in a comment. And I wish you all the best. Thank you for watching this video.